everyone, my name is Michaela Pennington, and this is my presentation on if it is education or schooling that is impacting students' mental health. There we go. So, main reasons why I picked this topic is because I am pursuing a psychological degree. I plan on to either go work in a hospital and apply my knowledge on it, or to go into a school setting and teach about psychology and mental illness and how to handle it. Not only that, but I am a student, and this is very important to me, making sure my mental health is in perfect condition as well as I can make it. And I've also seen throughout high school many of my friends struggling. I struggled through high school with my own mental health. I had some terrible anxiety. And this is just a very, very important topic for me. So just to give a little background information, there's just been a very large increase of concern about students' mental health. It mostly directed towards depression, anxiety, stress that school puts a burden on students, and other certain mental illnesses like ADHD, ADD, and bipolar, and a few others. So the difference between education and schooling is rather thin, but there is a difference. Education involves all ways of learning. It includes informal and formal ways. Schooling is a type of education, but it's formal education. Whereas if you were to read an article on your own without a teacher telling you, that would be a type of informal education. So schooling is formal, while education is just a large encompassing one. So education is more or less just knowledge gaining in any way. So is it schooling or education? It's schooling. Schooling is what's hurting mental health, because when going to school, students have to worry about tests and exams. They have to worry about peer pressure from others to either take risk and bad behaviors, fit into a certain group, follow the social norms. There's the also possibility of being bullied by other students, which has a huge impact on a student's well-being, being emotional, mental, or physical bullying. And for students struggling to determine their gender or sexuality, or members of the LGBT plus community, it's also a huge stress, especially if you go to a school where there may not be a club or a group, or it's not even allowed to be talked about in your school. So that puts a huge damper on students' mental health. Interesting, however, education can actually help with mental health. This is because if you are more educated, you have a better chance of getting a higher paying job, a more stable job, and relatively just being more financially secure, because you would be educated on how to take care of your money. So you wouldn't have to worry about, oh, I can't pay these bills, oh, I can't afford this or that, oh, I got to worry about food. But with the high education and a higher paying job, it eases the stress and helps alleviate some of the mental burdens. Not only that, but with the proper education in terms of understanding how mental illness works, healthy coping habits, how to handle a healthy lifestyle, these also help with a mental illness or help with just overall mental health. So it's kind of weird how schooling hurts a student's mental health, but education helps with it. So how does that really work? Well, it all comes down to environment. If you are in a healthy schooling environment where you are pursuing an education, chances are you have a less chance of having a mental illness. If you are in a poor environment where you are being bullied or you feel outcasted, then your mental health is going to plummet. So really, it's just the differences in environment that sets schooling and education different from each other. So why is this important? Well, 1 out of 6 US students from ages 6 to 17 suffer mental illness. That's a lot. And out of all the high schoolers with mental illness, 60% will not graduate high school. That's a huge drop off. It is very, very sad to see, especially if so many students have a mental illness. And with dropout, it usually means they can't find a safe and stable job, which only means that they will probably end up homeless or in poverty, which will only affect their mental health worse. And in some of these cases where they get so extreme, students will often turn to drugs or alcohol to help alleviate, so to say, their mental health, when really it's just hurting them more than anything, which leads into brain development. Brain development is very, very, very important, especially in children, where they're learning certain coping mechanisms, they're learning emotional maturity, they're trying to understand how to form social skills. And with a mental illness, it just gets damaged. And if it's not caught or not treated right away and properly, that damage can sometimes almost be irreparable. It can't be fixed if not caught sooner. And the very sad part of this is the suicide rates. Suicide is the second highest cause of death for ages 10 to 24, right behind, I believe, car accidents. So that's just crazy. It's hard to wrap your head around it. It's the second leading cause of death for 10-year-olds to 24-year-olds. And for high schoolers, 18.8% have considered suicide, with 8.9 attempting suicide, regardless if it was whether they were able to take their lives or they were saved before they lost it. So this is a very, very serious, very important thing about mental health. Suicide should never be a way out, as some people might say it. This should never be considered. It's a very serious topic, and that's one of the reasons why mental health needs to be discussed, it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be open and met with love and caring and empathy and sympathy, and rather than hate or that person's just weird. You have to, everyone suffers a mental illness at one point in their life, either it be depression, anxiety, or any kind of stress. It's very important that these topics are spoken about in schools. So why now? Well, back in 2009, there has been a 40% increase of mental illness from 2009 to now. That's a huge jump. It's probably even got up more due to COVID-19, which just piled on stressors. Kids are scared for their well-being, they're scared for their families, they're locked up in their homes, and if students are in a unhealthy home environment, then their mental health takes even a bigger plummet. Not only that, but being shut inside for a year means they don't have the ability to cope properly. They can't, if someone's normal coping mechanism is to see a friend or speak to someone else who isn't at their home, then that coping mechanism is gone. And they can't release all this stress and anxiety. And that just hurts their brain. And it's a downward spiral. So these are two of the major reasons why mental health for students has been brought up. It's because there's been a huge spike, and because of COVID-19 hitting schools so hard. So how to help the issue sounds pretty easy, but it takes a lot of effort. The first one is to encourage students to take care of their own mental health. This could either be suggesting to a classroom, hey, we have counselors, we have a psychologist, there's therapists, there's all these people, including myself, who is willing to help you with whatever issue you're dealing with. If you feel stressed, if you feel anxious, if you are considering suicide, please reach out. So that could be one way to help take care of the issue. Just spread the word. Teach mental health in classes. When I was in high school, it was the first time they spoke about mental health. I've never even heard of it until I was in not even ninth grade. I was in 10th grade. So it's very, very important that kids are taught at young ages, maybe not so serious, but just understand, hey, sometimes you're going to feel like this. Sometimes you might think this. And you know what? Just reach out. There's people who is willing to help, who's willing to listen, who's willing to help pull you through this awful, awful time. So that's one good way to help the issue. Another way is to help reduce the stigma. There is a huge, very big stigma about mental illness. There's people who think, oh, mental illness, that's just fake. You're just pretending for attention. It's not. Depression, anxiety, ADHD, bipolar, these are very, very serious illnesses, and they need to be confronted sooner than later. The longer they persist, the worse it gets, and the harder it is to recover, because people get sucked into this little bubble where this is all they can feel, and it's harder to break out of that. So when it's caught sooner and there's less stigma around it, students are more likely to be open about it, to say, okay, yes, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know what else to do. Please help me. That should be normalized. It should be normalized to ask for help when dealing with a mental illness. And another one, going back to the encouraging students, there's other ways for schooling, whether it be online, if that's what a student's more comfortable with, whether it be a different type of learning environment, that's also possible. Just making students aware there are different options for them to feel more comfortable, safe, and secure will help them immensely, because many students don't feel like teachers, principals, counselors, they feel like they don't care. So if you show that you care, it definitely helps. It's the best feeling a student can feel, especially if their home life is probably not as secure or loving. So schools need to be portrayed as a safe environment. And of course, there's the reducing of stigma for the mental illness, which is very important. And these are just all my references I used for this assignment. And that'll be it. Again, it's very important to be open, honest, and be caring and loving towards other people, because there's going to be someone who's struggling, and just saying, hey, I'm here for you, will help them immensely. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.